Hello and welcome to Dinim number 13. As I just got done explaining in the intro, the beta series is probably coming to an end, thank God. We're coming into the high holidays for the next month. So by the time we come out of that, we should be nearing the grand opening of the yeshiva. So all official announcements and publications will be going through the yeshiva. My goal is to never have to advertise personally again. It should only be upgraded to a more efficient module. And today I decided we're going to do, for Dinim, I think number 13, if I read Jacques' announcement on the WhatsApp group correctly, a kitchen sink class tonight. Just covering stuff. Look, it's the end of the year. We're not getting into anything new for Rosh Hashanah, right? It's just, all of you guys got busy lives, and you shouldn't even be here tonight. And you're all here exploiting your own personal lives, which I understand. I'm doing it too. So we're coming together for the sake of heaven. Let's just go over some kitchen sink stuff, wrap up loose ends. James Gosnell, this will be particularly good for you, as is everybody else here. And this is going to be more from my heart rather than Rabbi Katz learning, right? It's going to be perspective from me, myself, on how I see things and how my personal avodas Hashem has come to some conclusions, answers. It's more logical. That's good. Just how I see things. You don't have to agree with anything I say tonight. You can have your own opinions. But I think it's essential that I touch base with you guys, kind of like a conference call, if you will, and those that listen to the download on YouTube. Just kind of me personally letting you know where we're at. Hopefully I'm objective and not being too subjective, and letting us know where we're standing. And I have no intention to stop on time tonight, because I have a lot of things to cover. I don't know what that means. It might be that I speak only for 20 minutes, as my usual mazel goes when I go off the cuff. Let's go, right? None of this is in a particular order. None of it. This is just as it literally appeared in my notes, okay? I have 14 bullet points on my notes. So that means there are 14 things that I should talk about. And I'll actually number them and cross them off as I'm going. So this is Dinim number 13. I'm calling it Ger Dinim number 13. Number 1. Type 1 for number 1, because that's what we do. Type 1 for number 1. It's like, what's rule number 1? How's that go? Rule number 1, don't forget rule number 1. What's rule number rule number 2? What was rule number 1?
Number 2, refer to rule number 1.
That's it. So here we go. The first thing, here we go. Nani! Everyone say hello to Nani. He gets a big, warm welcome.
Hello, Nani.
Nani, say hello to us. Give us like a good opening one-liner. There you go, Nani. So, Nani, we're calling this Ger Dinim number 13. A lot of this is inspired by Nani, and hopefully he'll get a geschmack out of this as well. Here we go. For number 1 is called Otzer Meforshim. The other night, we all missed Samson class, and we won't rebuke everybody too hard for that. My power went out, which is not a surprise following the Monday night fiasco in the women's class where I got kicked out of class 3 times, right? It was that was the kind of week we had. So if I do get kicked out of here, Eric, you know what to do.
Yes, yes.
The power went out, and I was researching before class. The best news I heard that Eric wasn't going to come to Samson class because I didn't want to stop researching. That's the real honest truth of that one. But I did come to class in the end. Nobody came to class in the end. We didn't announce it. Power went out. It was just busy lives, like I said. And I was combing the Shulchan Aruch looking for the halacha on, again, you know what? Here's where I cheat. I'm going to bring in other numbers on the list just because it popped in my head. So we'll cover 2 birds with 2 stones, whatever you call that. Rule number 1 for rule number 2, whatever that is, right? Now I got the full thought. I'm just going to tell you the full thought, and then we can knock out a bunch of numbers at one time. I met a new Ger on Sunday night. He called me, and he let me know that the Breslov research or whatever, the Yehudit, the secretary, who's married to a convert husband, is telling me that Ger is wrong because Jews don't introduce new ideas, and David Katz making a Ger Toshav movement when there's no Jubilee is dangerous, and we shouldn't have that. Everybody type whatever you want to confirm such a concept. We've all heard this before. David Katz says this. David Katz says that. Type 1 if you understand what I'm talking about. Right? So the person said to them, it's not, you're not right. Rabbi Katz never said that. The book was good. So in the end, he knew Ger, and he didn't want to argue with this nice secretary. It's kind of surreal, I guess, when you hear back that we're sacrificing babies to the gods, as James Rogers put in his blog post, right? The Noahide claim. So I talked to this guy. He's a nice guy. His name is Kyle. And he said he remembered the attack that he could have given if he would have thought on his feet quick enough. And can you guys think of the attack? How do you know that Ger Toshav is true? Jacques, how does everyone know that there is a Ger today? How about Parshas Rei, chapter 14, 21? Right, Jacques? So he said that he just didn't think fast enough, because that is the most irrefutable Ger source ever. And I had seen a thing in the Shulchan Aruch, and I just wanted to find it. I couldn't find it. Finally, I found it. And here's what it says, okay? It's in a collection of of commentaries in the Shulchan Aruch. I did what I always do. Is that not horrendous? I took a picture of it, and I didn't capture where it is in the Shulchan Aruch. I think it's 119 or 117 in your day. I can get you the source afterwards. I took a picture of the commentary, and I forgot to get the page number. That's why I couldn't find it the first time. But here we go. This is the commentary on the Yerodea Shulchan Aruch, that we have a halacha to, and the reason why I couldn't find it was because I was looking for Ger Toshav. It's not. It's called selling the Vela to a Nachri. Type 1 if you've ever heard of that concept. Selling the Vela to the Nachri. So I wanted to find it in the Shulchan Aruch, and I did. And Jacques will tell you that Avodah Zarah, page 28, it says that if you're going to sell it to the Nachri, first look for a Ger Toshav to give it to, type 1. So the commentator says like this. Look in the Shach commentary that this pasuk is filled with Torah, 14:21. And it really is. And it's possible that the pasuk does not allow except where there's no ger to give the meat to. Everyone type 1. Do you understand that? I can only sell it to the Nachri where there's no ger. Type 1. Masha Ein Kain, where there is a ger, you're able to give it to him. But if there is a ger and I'm able to give it to him, I would say it's forbidden to sell it to the Nachri, right? Because I have to give it to the ger. But no, this halacha says even if there's a ger and you just, for whatever reason, want to sell it to the Nachri, you can. Now, the Ramah says, this din, that's one of the other opinion in the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah. We have to look further. That this is particular. That of today, there's no ger toshav. He's saying the concept that there's no ger toshav, but furthermore, it says you have to give it to a ger toshav. So on one hand, you have to give it to the ger toshav, but there's no ger toshav. And he says, Sarachian, you got to really look into this. All right, so, Jacques, you want the answer to that? And this is a big deal. Remember, I called Rav Eisenstein, and his answer was there's no ger today. I called Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg, and he said there's no ger today. And they didn't say because of Jubilee. Remember that. They did not say because of Jubilee. And then I responded and said, can I give my meat to a Noahide? And they both said yes. So I said, that's called a ger. And that's really where they hit a brick wall. They didn't say yes, they didn't say no, right? The nafkamina is it forbidden for me to give the meat to a Noahide? The answer is it's not forbidden. Well, then that's different from selling it to the Nachri. So by definition, you have to say there's a ger today. You understand? Everyone understand the dilemma? There, you have to say the halacha is you can give it to a person who keeps 7 laws. But to call it ger is where they hit their head against the wall. They'll call it Noahide, they'll call it, it just, and now, isn't that what we're all fighting? Aren't we all just trying to say what a comedian friend of mine, he was talking about how at McDonald's and Burger King, there's a 90s story, right? You go to the drive-thru, hi, I'd like a Big Mac and fries and Coke. Biggie? Would you like Biggie? Biggie fries? Biggie? No, I don't know. Just Coke? Biggie? Biggie Coke? Biggie? Like, just say it. Say Biggie. Say it. Say it. Say Biggie. So that was an old joke. But that's what we're kind of saying with ger. Right? Just say ger. Come on. Say it. Say it. Say it. Just say ger. Say ger. Because once you do, the entire reality changes. It's almost like, Jewish marriage. Once you say I do, now if you say you don't, you have to give a divorce, a get, and pay money. That's how serious it is to say I do. All right, now let's analyze this, okay? Everyone put your thinking caps on. Type 1 when you got your thinking caps on. Type 1 when you got your thinking caps on. I'm going to really paint this in a creative way so you can understand what I'm saying, okay? Type 1 that you understand, you're ready for me to do this. My name is Moshe, okay? My name is Moshe. And the year is 1850. Type 1. My name is Moshe, and the year is 1850. Goyim hate Jews. Type 1. They are anti-Semitic people. They are mostly Christians, if not all Christians. I am a Torah scholar rabbi, and I have read the Rambam, Hilchos Malachim, chapter 10, halachas 9 and 10, type 1. All Goyim are bad. I never met one that was good, except for my friend, the neighbor, who works with a butcher in town. He's a nice goy. I can't explain why, but we call him the nice goy. His name is John, type 1. But he's irrelevant. John is an irrelevant nice goy. Goyim are bad. They're bad. But when I read the Rambam, and it says Akum in 10:9, I never heard of a Ger Toshav. I learned about it once in Daf Yomi, but I know there's something called Jews and Goyim. Everyone type 1. So when I learn, the Rambam says that you can keep more mitzvahs in 10:10, all that's coming to say is like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, a goy can give tzedakah and that money is not idolatrous. But a goy cannot keep Shabbos or learn Torah. Type 1. All right, type 1 if you think that is the way that every single non-Jewish source is learned by the people that are opposing ger today. All right? You understand this? Now my name is Chaim, and I live in 2016, type 1. I read a book by Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, and it talks about all the different Gerim of non-Jews, type 1. And I know a lot of non-Jews in my life. And in the state of Israel, which has come about recently, a lot of non-Jews come to visit. And they're very nice people. And I've noticed that some of them are Christians with good heart, and some of them seem to really get Torah and ideas, type 1. And these people I can talk to and have conversations, and they kind of get what's going on. And when I read about the Ger Toshav in my Daf Yomi class, and it says that a Ger Toshav is someone who keeps the 7 laws of Noah. And then the Shulchan Aruch explains there's 2 kinds of Goyim. Goyim altogether, but another sect of non-Jews called those that keep the 7 laws, which is called a Ger Toshav, and it is forbidden for him to be your Shabbos goy. Type 1. I only understand this because I understand that there's something called a non-Jew that is a cut above the rest of other non-Jews when it comes to Torah applications, type 1. When I read the Rambam in 10.9 and 10.10, I see it talking about Akum and then the Ben Noach, which is like a Ger Toshav, and then it gets very complex from there. And that's what Torah is. Torah is complex. Because I went into Torah, I brought light into my learning that the Goyim are not just some kind of bland genre, but there's many kinds of Goyim. And all the different Iker and Inyanim matter. Type 1. So Moshe's world can't help it. Type 1. Moshe never met a non-Jew in his life. He never had a reason to think about a good non-Jew. Not because he's a bad person. He just, I never saw a giraffe. I don't know if I believe in an animal that has a 10-foot long neck. If you show it to me, I would like to see one. But I don't go in the street or fishing thinking that I'm going to find a giraffe. Do you guys ever think that you're just going to suddenly find a giraffe? Do you think about it when you go fishing? I don't. I don't go fishing expecting to find a giraffe. And I've never heard of Africa. In fact, I think it's illegal to go to Africa, so I don't go to Africa. Type 1. I will now learn every source. I got it, Chuck. I learn a source according to a limited mindset because I don't go looking for things that don't exist. I don't look for the Nazarite. I don't look for people from Antarctica, right? When I go out in public, I don't say, hey, do you happen to be from Antarctica? I don't do that. Do you guys do that? 1 or 2? But Chaim, he understands that with modern science, you can populate Antarctica, and now there's a whole populace of people from Antarctica. And if you remember on Facebook a while ago, I posted about Greenland. There are people that live in Greenland. How many people think on a daily basis that there's stuff going on Greenland? But there is. And it's ignorant to say that there isn't. So now, people will believe and learn like Moshe, type 1. People will learn and believe like Chaim, type 1. Chaim says Moshe is not necessarily wrong. He is allowed to be small-minded. Right? It's like saying, like my mother, she hates oregano. Okay, you know what? You are not wrong for not liking Italian food. It's not wrong. You're allowed to not like Italian food. You can say Italian food is bad. She can say that, type 1. She is allowed to say that. But she can't say there's no such thing as Italian food, type 1. The Moshe world cannot say that Chaim is living in a fantasy. And Chaim cannot say that Moshe is wrong for not believing in giraffes. But when it comes down to it, Moshe cannot say that Chaim doesn't exist or can't exist, and Chaim cannot say that Moshe cannot exist. They must coexist from reality, even though Chaim has a higher ground, okay? He doesn't have to learn on a deeper level with more light. If you don't eat oregano and you like bland food, okay, you're not eating to the best of ability. We're talking subjective here, all right? But you're allowed to, right? You're allowed to have bad taste. Right? Some people like bad music. Some people like bad food. Some people like bad clothes. Some people have bad taste. We all have bad taste. I mean, I'm sure my Crocs rub people the wrong way. I am aware of that. It is a bit of a bad taste. But that doesn't mean that bad taste says, because I have bad taste, you should have bad taste. That's like misery loves company. And really, what the mission of Chaim is, the more people get Ger, the more that bad taste goes away. In fact, the reason why I came on to Crocs, for those that want to know, is because I was against Crocs like everybody else. And they got me to believe that it's good for your feet. It's comfortable for certain feet. So I bought into it. I sold out, right? It's kind of the same thing. Once you understand that there is Ger, you kind of lose your Moshe world and you understand Chaim's world. And as Jacques told me on the phone today, our task is to figure out at what rate of energy do we operate Chaim's world into Moshe's world, type 1. And that really is the only everyone type 1, 2, 2, 1. That really is the challenge here. Aaron, what do you mean? Okay. And that's the challenge, right? They really shouldn't say we don't exist. They can say that it's not for them, and we are okay with that. They're not for us, and they're not for us, and we're not for them. We don't say that Noahide doesn't exist. We say it's not the deepest and most brilliant, but it's not for us, but that's okay for them. They're threatened by our approach. And we gave the description of the mashal of how both work. So we understand why Rav Eisenstein said there's no Ger today, right? The common thought is, let's assume there's no Ger today. But we see that there are Chachamim in history, all through every generation, that always said there is Ger today. You're allowed to say both. Jacques will tell you that Rav Eisenstein is Lafip Shuto, Jacques type 1, and Rav Aaron Soloveitchik is according to the Pshat. There is a Ger today. There was always a Ger. You are allowed to say Lafip Shuto, there's no Ger. But that is Lafip Shuto. I'm allowed to say there is no such thing as how to shecht a giraffe. I'm allowed to say that. But the Shochet will tell you the giraffe is the easiest animal to shecht. You pick us one spot in 10 feet of neck and it's kosher. And even that's a lesser example because most people don't eat giraffe. The bottom line is there was always Ger, and it is easier to learn if you assume there's no Ger. And if you paid attention to how I understood Razalman Nehemiah Goldberg, all he's doing is, hey, you calling me for the halacha, you're going to get confused. Why don't you assume there's no Ger? And sell the meat to the Nachri or give it to a good goy, type 1. And what we're saying is we're not descriptivists, we're prescriptivists. Which type of goy should I give it to? And they're saying pick one. I'm saying I'm not that clever, I want wisdom of Torah. And this is where you get people like, is it forbidden to go on the Temple Mount or not forbidden? Well, they forbid it because they don't want Israel to build the second temple and Meshubas to go up there. So they say it's forbidden. Yet they open the Temple Mount for people every day. And it's not forbidden. No one ever forbade it. Same thing with Ger, which is very striking to me why Chaim Richmond battles Ger in private quarters when it's the exact same fight as the Temple Mount. No one's going to say, hey, it's Ger now. Let's go ahead and just be idiots about it and go Ger crazy. But, just like the Temple Mount says you can go up, there should be more people understanding Ger, and they're out there like Rav Soloveitchik. They're just quiet about it. Really, Chaim Richmond, in all of his merit, he is the only voice advocating going on top of the Temple Mount, and he should be praised for that. It's fantastic work. Just like he's the only one really loud and clear. I guess there's a couple other ones, but he's the biggest one, saying Temple Mount, we have a Ger Toshav movement much the same way, with much of the same politics involved. It just seems that Ger is a little bit more heated, and more people are prone to saying the answer is don't look at it, and we're saying look at it, and it really does come down to that. When you learn Ger, are you willing to have an open mind or a closed mind? And that is the bottom line on Ger. Are you assuming it's all one kind of goy, or are you assuming that there's many kinds? And Rav Soloveitchik brought this in the book. A non-Jew died on your lawn. You bury him with Israel, says Rashi. And the question is, what kind of Nilva Ger was he? What kind of non-Jew was with Israel? Is it the total idolater? Do I have to bury him? Is it a Nachri Chassid? Is it a Ger Toshav? Is it a Goy Akum in today's standards? So that's what Rav Soloveitchik is asking. And that's what we're saying. Who do I give the meat to? I have the right to know. And I have the right to give consciousness to the Nachri, who's a Shabbos Goy, to let him know how to grow so that he can no longer serve as an improper Shabbos Goy. And if I have my Noahide friend over, it's forbidden for him to be my Shabbos Goy. It makes no sense to close your eyes to it. But we can understand why they do. Right? If a Goy comes to my house, he's a Shabbos Goy, type 1. I'm technically allowed to do that. I don't have to ask his name, where he's from, right? I'm allowed to be ignorant. Type 1, please. I know it's a hard one, but I'm allowed to be ignorant. You don't have to cooperate. The non-Jew need not cooperate with ignorance. And that's what we're seeing now, is there's people taking a stand against ignorance. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about. There are those that know how to learn and those that don't know how to learn. And that's a big consequence of what it comes down to. Those that get brisk and those that don't. Eric, where do you stand on that? You around? James? Nani? Aaron? How do you guys feel about this?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, it makes sense. I had a problem with the Shabbos Goy thing because...
Well, it's a problem. But the fact is they're technically, like rabbinic, Lefib Shuto, lowest common denominator, allowed to believe it. Until it's proven they can't. You understand?
Okay, I get it.
Right. Until Ger consciousness goes out, they don't know not to believe it. You understand? It's our job to bring that consciousness. And that's going to be our litmus test, how successful we are in waking people up and opening their eyes. Ger not fixed, so Shabbos. Exactly.
Nice, Aaron.
And it's not even clear in Halacha that Shabbos Goy should exist. They're taking a Lafib Shuto, lowest common denominator. It's like I can turn light switches on and off as long as I do it by accident, right? Yeah, exactly, Nani. There's a lot of rabbinic loopholes in Halacha. And a lot of Judaism relies on rabbinic loopholes. And it doesn't rely on an open mind or open eyes mentality. But as we're going towards Geula, if we're going to come out of exile, we must endorse a known Judaism. It's not a new Judaism. It's a Soloveitchik Judaism. It's a Brisker Judaism. It's a liberated mind Judaism, meaning know the Inyan of the Temple Mount, know the Inyan of the Ger Toshav, know the Inyan of geocentrism, Nani, know the Inyan of what is Rashi, what are the Rishonim. Open your eyes. Which brings me to my next point. The difference between weak learning and strong learning is, do you know the Inyan? Do you know the Inyan? Noahide is really the B'nai Noach Stam. They think we're trying to get them to be Gerim when we're not, nor do they want to be. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They have a right to adhere to Moshe's world. We have a right to adhere to Chaim's world. Chaim's world makes awareness for those stuck in Moshe's world. Moshe's world wants to say that Chaim's world doesn't exist. And we're saying that's an illogical argument. You can't say that. You can't say it. We're saying you shouldn't exist, but like Shituf almost, if not literally, we say you do exist in a Lafib Shuto, lowest common denominator scenario. It's Bedi Evid at best. It's not Lecharchila. Is it fair to say that stringency in Lafib Shuto is protection to low-level learning? Yes. It's called Bedi Evid. Machmir Judaism is ignorance, says Rabbi Nachman. You know that the halacha is, it is illegal to make tea from a tea bag on Shabbos. You know why? Because the rabbis are afraid that you're going to squeeze the tea bag, therefore doing an avera. But guess what? If you know how to make tea and you're not breaking the halacha, there's another halacha that says, hey, make tea. So if an idiot asks a rabbi, can I make tea? The answer is no, because you're an idiot. If an intelligent person asks a rabbi, can I make tea on Shabbos? The answer is yes, because you're not an idiot. Same thing here. Is there a Ger Toshav today? No, because you're an idiot. Is there a Ger Toshav today? Yes, you're quite intelligent for asking. Shkoyach. One is a Machmir Shita, one is a Makel Shita. Why are you Makel? Because the person knows how to operate within the standard of halacha. Or you can say Makel is Bedi Evid. And therefore, that's an excuse to not adhere properly to the Torah. So again, just like in Hilchos Shabbos, Kavana makes all the difference. Your mindset, your intentions. I hate God. I hate Shabbos. Can I just lock myself in a room to keep Shabbos? Yeah, Bedi Evid. Right? That's a very Makel Shabbos, isn't it? Just try not to kill somebody today. But if you want to be Makel to say, can I carry outside my house? Be Makel. Yeah. Why? Because there's really no such thing as carrying in most places. It's a Machmir Chumrah to adhere to the Eruv, lest you be seen as carrying. Now, that's a Chumrah a lot of people do, but it's a Chumrah. So to take your Chumash to your neighbor's house is not carrying, even though it's technically called being Makel, lenient. That's a big difference to saying, can I turn my light switch on accidentally with my elbow? Yeah, Bedi Evid, you did it. Okay, Bedi Evid Makel, you did it. Now, is that Lechachila? No. Should you do it? No. Am I Machmir to not turn on the lights with my elbow? Yes, I am Machmir to not cheat. You understand how there's an ethics in Machmir and Makel, and that comes from the laws of Psak Halacha. It is Machmir, Eric, to close your eyes and say a goy is a goy is a goy. It is Makel, so to speak, to say, I understand there's many kinds of non-Jews. Meaning, do I have to help a non-Jew? I can be Machmir and say yes or no. I could also be Makel and say yes or no. There's many creative ways you can look at halacha. We see that from Rav Moshe Feinstein. There's something called Machmir Pekuach Nefesh. If I see someone dying on any level, I can be Machmir. If an Akum of today is choking, I can be stringent and say, I rendered, in my mind, his life was in danger, so I patted him on the back. Now, you could argue I saved the life of an idolater, and I'm wicked. Or you could say he was not actively breaking the 7 laws, and therefore I saved the life of a Ger Toshav. Which one would you prefer me to think? And you could say, well, that's complicated. You're making it complicated. That's called having wisdom. That's called being a human, right? You're being Machmir, let him die because I'm too lazy to get up and know the wisdom and truth. That's your Machmir approach. That's called Sharia law, and we don't believe in Sharia law. Now, if it was an idolater, and I knew that for a fact, I might let him choke and die. I'm not in position. I don't ever want to be in position to do that, but it could be, I don't know. I don't even know where that goes hypothetically. I don't want to think about that. If I had to think about it, I probably could. God willing, God won't put me in that position. But I'm sure if he did, God, because he's the true judge, will give me the wisdom and understanding and knowledge to deal with it appropriately. The tests from God go far. We never prayed to be tested. But at the end of the day, I think I've made my point. Can I move on? Have I made my point? 1 or 2? All right.
Well done. Well done.
So now what spawned this whole thing is the Rogachover. And I think I'm going to go out of order in my notes because I want to focus on the Rogachover. So let me go out of order now. And I'm going to say next. I'm going to say a lot of points in random order. There are no dots to connect here. Okay? This is just random tohu. I have found that the attack on Ger is they are saying it is inappropriate. Nani got me to see that. Everybody agrees a non-Jew can learn Torah. Everyone says, I say they learn Parshas Noach. I say they can only learn Tanakh. So let's say a non-Jew can only learn Parshas Noach, type 1. If you teach them Lech Lecha, what is the real complaint here? It is inappropriate that you taught them Lech Lecha. Do you agree that that's the attack? It's not a matter of, sir, you did a sin. It is appropriate for them to learn Noach. It is inappropriate for them to learn Lech Lecha, type 1. That is the attack we are experiencing. Well, Rabbi Katz says a non-Jew can learn Torah if he's a Ger Toshav, or a Ger in your gate, but an Akum, Chayav Misa. So if I say all Goyim, or all non-Jews are Goyim, what Rabbi Katz would be doing is inappropriate. If we were to learn like our Dugma Mashal, like Moshe. If it's Chaim, Rabbi Katz is now appropriate. Type 1 if you agree. Chaim teaching the Torah to that Chaim thing is appropriate. Moshe would call that inappropriate. I find it interesting that those that call us who are advocating Ger inappropriate, I find it interesting that their method of rebuttal is always in an inappropriate way. Do you find that interesting as well? All attacks of inappropriateness are done through inappropriate behavior.
Irony.
I learned. What's that?
Irony of.
Right. I learned in elementary school that 2 wrongs don't make a right. It seems that their wrong doesn't make it right. And another word of wisdom that I received on my trip is that a lot of Jewish fighting, if not all Jewish fighting, revolves around books and competition. And it seems to me that the real slander is not about me or Chaim or Ger or the Gerim. Rather, it's about book slander, right? All the attack is, please don't read their book. It seems that we made a conscious effort to put the book out, and therefore the 180-degree rule is, the attack against it is, put the book back. Because our only intention of the memes and the aggressive approach is getting the book out. Therefore, they can, by Newton's laws, right? All they can do, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. They must be saying, put the book back on the shelf. And once it goes on Amazon, then we won. Exactly. An interesting thing, the 1421, is that it's always about meat. The Erev Rav are given meat in the desert, courtesy of this idea thanks to Mike Matledge. And it seems the Erev Rav have a natural wisdom of meat, and that's a natural enemy of the temple when the temple includes Gerim in their meat. Type 1. And those that don't know, I found out in the last 24 hours that I am a Kohen. I've known that loosely, but through Mazel research, by the help of Eric Bryan and Russell and others, I contacted my uncle, my dad's brother, and it turns out their mother, my grandmother, was a kosher butcher in Pennsylvania who worked with the town rabbi / shochet, which my grandmother knew the laws of meat, basically, which is smicha. She wasn't a rabbi, but it's interesting that me as a Kohen pursuing rabbinics, pursuing ger, which is the meat, the mazel of my family, and the true return to Kohen according to Torah came through the sanctification of proper meat in the Torah. I'm just throwing that in because it's interesting. And Gerim seemed to be all about the Beis Hamikdash. What makes a convert is when he brings his offering. Gerim are attached to the Beis Hamikdash. That's 31:12 in Devarim. So it is a very Beit HaMikdash thing. It's a very meat thing. It's an Erev Rav thing. And we see in our generation it never changed. The Ger is a convert. We call that Torah B. And Ger in your gates is Torah A, which is another way of saying, if you understand what's called the Soloveitchik way of thinking, then you're thinking biblically. The Ger is part of Am Yisrael, the fourth house of Israel, Kohen Levi Israel Ger. You might not operate according to 4 houses, I'm not receiving gifts as a Cohen. Chaim doesn't play the flute in the temple. Jews are not doing Jewish things. Israel and Gerim are not accepted. Type 1. But we can start to learn Torah and think and relate under these terms. It is not illegal to consider me a Cohen, even though I don't work as a Cohen. I consider Chaim a Levi, my friend Chaim, not the Mashal Chaim. So it is very healthy, in my opinion, to gravitate towards redemption, Torah A mentality of there's a Cohen, there's a Levi, there's an Israelite, there's a convert, there's a Ger. There are things called prophets, kings, and judges, and Samsons, and Nazarites, and widows, and orphans. It is not wrong to think in those terms, and the Torah in its Iker form is in those terms. If you're going to understand Torah according to the Iker and the Inyan, then you must know those terms. If you think the Rambam is not in those terms, you didn't get the Rambam. If you thought the Rambam wasn't in the Inyan, you didn't get the Rambam. Moshe is not in those terms, as according to our mashal. Moshe says everyone is either Jewish or Goyim. And that's a very low-level Sharia law style of learning, lacking light, and they're allowed to do that. Technically, I'm a Jew, not a Cohen, and you are a Goy, not in anything else. But really, according to the truth, I'm not a Jew, I'm a Cohen. And as a Cohen, I recognize Cohen Levi Israel Ger. Exactly. So, you see my point. Have I made my point on that? 1 2 2 1 1 1 2 2 2. Hello. Good. Meir Kahana, in his book, I want to emphasize this. This is for you, Nani. He says there's two kinds of non-Jews. And in one of those, there's two kinds of non-Jews. There's two kinds of non-Jews. Those that are shaykh to Eretz Yisrael and not. If you're not shaykh to Eretz Yisrael, then it's the Ritva. And then there's three kinds of non-Jews. Goy, Ben Noach, Ger Toshav. And that Ger Toshav, by definition, for those that know how to learn Meir Kahan, hello, by definition, those that will know how to learn Meir Kahan, hello, the Ritva, hello, calling Vash. The Ger Toshav must be outside the land if it's not concerning the land of Israel. Thank you. But if it's concerning the land of Israel, then there's two kinds of non-Jew. There's the Ritva outside the land. Hello, Dvash. And then there's the Ger Toshav in the land of Israel, which is the 7 Canaanite nations. Today, the Muslims are in the Geder of 7 Canaanite nations. If they become Ger Toshav, they have to pay tax. They're subservient to the Jew, and they take on the 7 laws of Noah by mandatory. They cannot keep Shabbos or any other mitzvah. They can convert to Judaism if they don't want that. That is not the Ritva Ger Toshav. Guess what, James? What do you think the Rambam is talking about in Halacha 10:9, according to the Soloveitchik style of learning? Well, we would have to say that the Rambam knew the Inyan and the Iker. So when he says Ger Tzedek, when he says resting on Shabbos, that is the same Inyan. For those that need to know what Inyan is, ask your rabbi. If you don't know what an Inyan is, it is not my job to educate you, i.e. Chaim's world to Moshe's world. The Inyan Rambam speaks about is a very Soloveitchik Inyan. And in fact, I'll help you. It is the Eved. The Eved in 10:9. That's who the Rambam's talking about according to the Inyan. If you don't know the Inyan, then you would say it's just an Akum, a non-Jew. He, for some reason, wants to keep Shabbos. But if you know the Inyan, it's Shulchan Aruch 304, and him keeping or not keeping Shabbos is concerning the Shabbos Goy. Is he allowed to be a Shabbos Goy or not? That's if you learn the Rambam according to the Inyan. Okay, and that's what Meir Kahan was talking about in the Ger Toshav in the land, which is not the same as the Ger Toshav outside the land. That brings us to the Magid Meisharim and the Psak of the Rebbe. The Magid Meisharim on the Rambam in chapter 20, Halacha 14, Paskins that there is a ger toshav outside the land, non-evid. That's the Rebbe's psak. That is not the same ger toshav as Meir Kahana. Meir Kahana did not argue this. He focused on a different type of ger toshav because he was talking about one inyan and there's many inyanim. He is not obligated to speak about every inyan. But you must understand that he knew every inyan. How do I know he knew every inyan? Because he brought the ritva, which is not his inyan, and he knew the inyan. He spoke of the inyan. James Gosnell, this is for you. In Yerushalmi Yavamis, chapter 8, halacha 1, it talks about the ger toshav, and this is for everybody that came last week that wanted to know, halacha lamaisa, don't taunt the ger. Is that the convert ger, i.e. the Torah is not for non-Jews, or does it include the non-Jew and includes the ger toshav? It in fact does include the ger toshav, and the Gemara there explains it. In doing so, it explains what mekablin means. James Gosnell, you might want to listen up. What does mekablin mean? We do not accept ger toshav except in a time of jubilee. The bad perverted McDonald's English takes the word mekablin and makes it accept. Only it doesn't mean accepted at all. Have you guys ever heard of cognates? Have you ever heard of cognates? So in English, you have a word that might sound like you understand what it means, but actually you don't know what it means. Same too in Hebrew. Mekablin sounds like accepted, only it has nothing to do with accepted. Mekablin is a darga, James. It's an ikr term of a darga. James, would you like to be on a darga of ger toshav, or beneath the darga and seen as an akum, goy, or nachri? Are you with me, James? So the Gemara wants to know, what is the darga of ger toshav? And toshav is actually the term for the darga of a satisfied darga of ger, who then becomes what we call ger toshav, keeps the 7 laws of Noah, shayat tehilchos malachim 10:10, etc. James, would you like to know what is the darga of such a non-Jew that he is no longer considered a nachri, a goy, or an akum? There is something called jubilee. If the jubilee were to come right now, would you, the non-Jew, have to have a knowledge of a certain level? 1 or 2. James, it says that in Yavamis 8:1 in the Rishalmi, but the Gemara in Yavamis Rishalmi expects you to know 2 things, the ikr and the inyan. And if you don't know the inyan and the ikr, you would probably make this mistake of Moshe and say that it means accepted. On the airplane to America, I had the app of Beis Medrash, and I searched for mekablin, and I've tested it. Every single time mekablin is used, and I have now tested it in every single place I find it, it is a bona fide ikr term, which means it doesn't translate into anything. It's an ikr term. When we look for the translation, it will lose meaning every time. Again, if it was Jubilee right now, would you guys understand if I told you, if it's Jubilee, you must be a ger toshav according to the demands of Jubilee? You have to have renounced idolatry, know what that means. There's a level called functioning as a kosher ger in a Jubilee time period. Please type 1. So now, in a time of not Jubilee, if you're going to be a ger toshav, even though today there's no Jubilee, you must be on a cognitive functioning level as if there were Jubilee. This is what I said in my shir last night. Let's make a pretend story. The pretend story is I'm a Cohen, but let's pretend that I'm not allowed to say I'm a Cohen unless I was prepared to work in the temple right now, type 1. Type 1. So if I was not prepared to work in the temple, I'm not allowed to say I'm a Cohen. You understand the example? But if I can work in the temple, then I get my license to say I'm a Cohen. Now, that is not a true story. But by Ger, it is a true story. There's something called the temple. We'll call that the Makablin, Yovel, Jubilee, Level, Darga, Geder. If you're not holding there, please do not call yourself a Ger Toshav. If you are holding there on an intellectual faith level and personal acceptance level, that I accept the responsibility that if that time were now, I would function in it in a kosher way, hold your right hand up, so to speak, and say, I am that, even now. And if I'm not that, I have the integrity to say, I'm not that. Shabbos is like, this is what we're reading now, Shabbos is like Jubilee on a personal level. Jubilee is a national level. I concur, Eric Bryan. Shabbos is saying, I do not serve idols because I'm not an idolater. Okay, we covered that. James, are you clear? That was for you. This is a personal announcement. The Soloveitchik work will be discussing the discrepancies of Hilchos Malachim 10.9 and 10.10. For those that cannot learn properly, it's sad. The Soloveitchik work will put an end to that forever, God willing. To speak about our favorite female blogger, it's interesting that the proof text brought was from a source of a rationalist without naming names. And he proves it by saying, and I'll paraphrase what he said, I don't know the Iker and I don't know the Inyan, but I believe, ... but I believe, ... I'll give you an example what I believe means. Either Eric Bryan or James Gosnell, can you please type me a quick fact about something in your town? Anything it is. Please type me a quick fact about your town. And Custer is from here. I've never been to Eric's town. But if I were to say I believe, this is how I would say, Custer is from here. Well, Eric, I believe that to be a very bad thing. Chicago is windy. I believe that's because of Lake Erie. What do you guys think of my I believe? Am I right? Why not? Why not? What do you mean? It's not Kishuf. What do you mean? What do you mean? Are you saying I don't know the Iker and the Inyan? Are you saying I don't know the Iker and the Inyan? Yes. That's why I believe is worthless. If you don't know the Iker and the Inyan, you don't know what to believe. It's completely subjective. It's called I want to believe because I said so, or I don't. Now, a lot of people have what's called an opinion, Avichai Noni, and opinions are I believe. And as long as I can make sure that I out-kishuf you, I can say whatever I want about Chicago's windy conditions and your town, Eric, and you have nothing to say about it. As long as I can convince people, I look very strong. Projecting opinion as fact. Exactly. All right, we covered that point. And Kol HaTorah. In the Ora Rayon, Meir Kahana, he speaks about Kol HaTorah, and he says that the Kol HaTorah is the authority of Mashiach ben Yosef. He says of all the works of redemption, nothing I have found was on the level of Kol HaTorah on an authoritative level. He says the Vilna Gaon Kol HaTorah is the authority of the beginning of the redemption and Mashiach ben Yosef. Therefore, we can make a statement. Meir Kahana, tell me if this is logical. Jacques, think Dio here. Can we say Meir Kahana's Mashiach ideology is synonymous with Kol HaTorah? And based on what we learned in the women's class, the answer is yes. Now, I cannot say, since Meir Kahan bought into Kol HaTorah, obviously Mickey Mouse is Mashiach. Because I learned Kol HaTorah, and I realized that Mickey Mouse is Mashiach. All the more so, Meir Kahan, he is Mickey Mouse. Is that logical? No. It's too great of a chiddush, and you can't say that even without daya. But what we can say is that if Rav Kahan said Kol HaTorah Vilna Gaon is the authority of Mashiach at the beginning of the redemption, then I can say that Kahan ideology is synonymous with Kol HaTorah in regards to the redemption. Nani, do you agree with this? Nani, do you agree with this? And if we're going to say that, then it seems to me if we are... Go ahead.
There's something called, we have the Derek Eretz to believe in his scholarship enough that if he makes a comment about that, about Kol HaTorah, then he does understand the Inyan.
That has to be a given, because if a person is a follower of his, then I assume they read the whole book and internalized his ideology. Agreed, Eric?
Yes, precisely.
Right. So, and no one's accusing her of cherry picking. No one is accusing of cherry picking. So we're going to play by her Lafib Shuto rules, our favorite adorable female blogger, and we're going to say like this: if the Gaon had an eschatological view of redemption that Meir Kahan adheres to completely, then if the ideology is driven by Kol HaTorah, because if it's a Mashiach ideology to the full extent of what we're talking about, then apparently those that understand Kol HaTorah would understand Rav Kahana. If I assume that Rav Kahana understood Kol HaTorah and no one questions the scholarship, then those that understand Kol HaTorah would understand Meir Kahan. Is that a logical assertion? And so here's where the discrepancy comes from. Maybe I'm tooting my own horn and biased, but after having been somebody who has translated a lot of Vilna Gaon works, where the Kol HaTorah is my specialty of the last 15 years, as Nani will quote for you, I've learned it over 1,000 times. We're in the middle of an official translation of Kol HaTorah text, not limited to Kol HaTorah, but the greater Midrash Shlomo set of Vilna Gaon Zionism. And I've collaborated with other Kol HaTorah experts. It seems to me that we have a pretty quality, educated analysis of what the beginning of the redemption looks like as Meir Kahan would have seen it. Does that make me the only expert, absolute expert, authoritative expert? No. There's a lot of things I don't know. But I know that what I am doing is 100% not against the Kol HaTorah. I've learned everything from the Kol HaTorah. If I was wrong, I would have to be, by logical demand, at odds with Rav Kahana. I agree with everything Rav Kahana said. So, now, the opposite view would be from those that want to learn Rav Kahana. And by the way, it was Nani that brought me Rav Kahana and his view on Mashiach ben Yosef, Shkoyach Nani, that those that are proclaiming a different Kahanism are ignoring blatantly the Kol HaTorah Vilna Gaon approach to Kahanism. I find that troubling. With that said, it's a mazel thing. My mazel has brought me to understand Kol HaTorah. Apparently the bloggers, that their mazel is to not know Kol HaTorah, and I'm not blaming them. It's unfortunate that when mazel collides, that at least people should come together and see the greater mazel and come to a greater understanding. I've learned a lot, and to keep our Moshe Chaim dichotomy here going, an uppity blog phrase, people come. Yeah, exactly. So what I find ironic is in the anti-Ger slander, I've learned exponentially more by taking to heart their concerns. It would be a little bit derech eretz and much progress if the same was reciprocated by those who attack a book. That's my point on that. We're going to do the Rogachover Gaon. And Jacques, I don't know if we have time to do the Rashi. If we don't, we'll do it another time. Here we go. Rogachover Gon. This is the halacha as I know it. This is Rambam Hilchos Malachim 10:10 and 10:9. This is the Lubavitcher Rebbe's approach on Ger Toshav. If we're going to get out of the difficult way of saying it's the Rambam, but then there's the Ravid, which is the halacha, it's just very difficult to understand it by always stating it in that way. This is how you would state the halacha clearly. You would quote the Rogachover Gon. Ready? Ger Toshav. Ger Toshav in the time of the temple and today. I'm just translating as we go. The difference between if he does his Kabbalah before Beis Din or not, there's options today to influence the nations to accept 7. The Rogachover Gon held by the Masbir, he explained the difference in the 2 halachas of the Rambam. That in the Hilchos Asuri Bia 14:7, who's a Ger Toshav? This is an Akum that accepted not to serve idols and accept the commandments of Noach. And he became Ger Toshav, and who is Toshav? It's that Makablin, James. And by the way, Makablin in Yerushalmi Yevamos, it doesn't even make sense to use the word accepted for the translation. Hilchos Malachim 10:10 writes a Ben Noach that wants to make a mitzvah from the rest of the mitzvahs in order to makabel schar. We don't hold him back from doing it like the halacha. And he explains that the halachas of Asuri B are speaking about accepting his gerus, they call that gerus, in Beis Din, therefore he's considered like Ger Toshav. In Hilchos Malachim it speaks that he does not accept his gerus in Beis Din. Or, pay attention, James Gosnell. Why does Hilchos Malachim 10:10 call him Ben Noach? Why does Hilchos Malachim 10:10 call him Ben Noach? Because he did not accept his gerus in Beis Din, or in a time where there's no jubilee and there's no way to get to Beis Din, James, then he's in the geder of Ben Noach. But as we see, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, there is still a mitzvah deraisa, mitzvah l'chiyuso. Still a mitzvah l'chiyuso. Because he couldn't go to Beis Din, and we don't punish him. The difference is he's not an Evid, James. You're not an Evid. Mazel tov. That is to say that the Shitas of the Rambam, there's 2 types. One is Ger Toshav, that this falls dafka if he accepted the mitzvahs in Beis Din of 3, and a Ben Noach that did not accept himself the 7 mitzvahs in Beis Din, or in a time when there's no jubilee, we don't there's no makabel Ger Toshav, and if he's makayim 7 mitzvahs, then there's mitzvah l'chiyuso. Because he understands the darga mitzvah l'chiyuso, darga of Yovel. So there's Ger Toshav, Din Ger Toshav, and Makablin Ger Toshav is the same, James Gosnell, as Din Ger Toshav and Geder Ger Toshav. All 3 are terms to say mitzvoyin alav l'chayuso. And the Rav was medayik in this. It says that also a Ben Noach that's not Ger Toshav, mitzvah l'chayuso, understands Hilchos Malachim 8:10. Here we go. Your Ben Noach that's not a Ger Toshav. Guess what that is? Hilchos Malachim 8:10. Moshe Rabbeinu commanded all the goyim to accept the laws of Noach, and if you do it, you're called a Ger Toshav. And this is the Kabbalah Gerus before 3 people in Beis Din. Gam Bistam Kabbalah's Gerus. Even if it's not before 3 in a Beis Din, James, is called Stam Kabbalah's Gerus. Guess what you call a Ger Toshav? Gerus. Guess what you call Ger Toshav? Ger. Guess what you call Ger Toshav? Gerim. It's the sheet of the Rashba. All Lashon Ger. All Lashon Ger. It's either convert or Ger Toshav. And how do we know the difference? You have to know the Inyan and the Iker, Eric. Well, how do I know that? It's called you have to study and open books. You have to read Soloveitchik and be a Stigl Brisker and not bury your head in the sand like our paradigm Moshe. And he adds, according to this, there's an obligation today when there's no Jubilee to pressure the nations to accept 7. Okay. Then he says that the difference between keeping 7 mitzvahs and accepting in Beis Din. In the din of Ger, in his Geru, in his Gior, in a way that he accepts the mitzvahs, we find 2 ways in the Rambam, 2 ways in Shnei Shem, 2 different names, what we call him. There's the Yisuri Bia, Ger Toishev, and then there's one called Ben Noach. So, what do you think, guys? Do you think the Rogachover was an Aaron Soloveitchik, Rav Chaim guy, or a bury your head in the sand, Rav Moshe, and our little paradigm guy? Now, the Rebbe in his Kedarko Motze Mechiluke, the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe held by the Rogachover, Av Hoira Maisi Af Liyameno. This is all for today. The since like today, it's not shy to Kabul Ger Taishev. Since the din is like he is not wanting the Lakabel, then he is killed only in the time of Beis Din, and we are strong in the nations. However, to accept the schus of life, Ze Ino Megedri Achoiver. He's saying that the Rebbe is all about Bnei Noach. Olam Sawyer, not all of this is totally shy, we're saying. I was saying for time constraints. So Olam Sawyer lekros Mashiach Af Hadatot HaIkarit Ino Ela Hachana. All right, so all of this is Hachana, preparation for Mashiach. Obviously, it's a Lubavitch thing. He's going to quote Sophania 3:9. We know that. More halacha ma'isa, kind of reiterating the same point. Yes, he did. The 2 types of James said the Rogachover gave the Rebbe a smicha. 2 kinds of Ger Taishev. One is in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. One is today. And there's a bunch of nafkaminas. Rogachover Gon. He's just going to repeat himself. He just repeats himself the whole way through. They just brought all the different locations of all of his Sfarim where he says this. And there's a nafkamina of the Ben Noach and the Ger Toshav, as the Grease says, if he killed a Jew, the Ger Toshav, if a Jew is chayav, therefore Gullus. Also, the Ger Toshav is considered like Israel, that also gets Gullus, he's not killed like a Ben Noach. And those are the 3 things in Yavamis and Rishalmi. 3 things a Ger Toshav is on the same level as a Jew. If he killed a Jew, he gets gullus and not killed. Don't taunt him and don't extort him for money. Just like a Jew, so too a Ger Toshav. For those that want to, and that is the retort for those that say the non-Jew is not in the Torah and doesn't have halacha for him today or of all time. So then they say in the Gemara there, how do we distinguish the Jew from the non-Jew? And the answer is the non-Jew becomes like a Jew by not doing Avodah Zarah. That's his Macabre, James Gosnell, along the lines with the Jubilee. But get this, everybody. How does one remove his idolatry? The non-Jew removes it in a way that's not Jewish. So therefore, he only came to equality and according to that law, in the Geder of that law, a different way than the Jew. Right? It's the same thing with Shabbos. The Jew came to Shabbos because of the covenant. The non-Jew came to Shabbos to say non-Avodah Zarah, non-Shabbos Goy. They're both resting on Shabbos. One according to the covenant of Sinai, Jewish, the whole Jewish thing. The non-Jew is doing it from a totally different way. And this is just reality. Everybody sees the same thing, but they see it and get to the same conclusion by 2 different ways. It's called humanity. And we're actually doing pretty good on time. I think we pretty much did the Roach over here. So now, Jacques, we're going to finish off with you. We had in the Miriam class on women, and we said that logical arguments are deduced from Miriam in the Bible. We say that surely, because Miriam talked Lashon Hara, surely her father would spit in her face for 7, she'd be punished for 7 days. Let her be punished for 7 days. This is a classic Lefif Shuto. No one spit in her face. God is not a man to spit in her face. The Torah is speaking allegorically. And Eric will tell you, if you read the next pasuk, where Miriam's getting called out, the reason why she was punished was because after 7 days, the nation was ready to travel and move on. And God used Miriam to pace the nation, the people, so that after 7 days, they were ready to travel. That's the pshat. Lefif Shuto says that, obviously it's a logical question, how long should she be punished for? Now that's Lefif Shuto. No one actually needed to do that cheshbon, because the real answer why was it was always going to be 7 days. But you can make an argument that God, whatever man does as a punishment, if God were to do it, it would be double, right? It's a safe assumption. Lefif Shuto, because really you'd say it's not even logical Lefif Shuto. You know, if God punishes me, who's to say it's double? God can do what he wants. So the analogy itself breaks down. You can't even make the analogy, but we'll do it Lefif Shuto. So we say that if God did it, it was 14 days. It's too big of a chiddush. She was punished for 7 days. She was punished for 7 days. The yada yada breaks down. So my famous litmus test for Lefif Shuto is 180-degree roll. Even if Rashi's allowed to do it, Art Scroll, not totally understanding Lefif Shuto, they get it wrong every time. Jacques, are you with me and are you paying attention? This is for you. Now, pay attention. I have a special Art Scroll Rashi. Many of you probably don't have it. It's because I'm privileged and you're not. Just joking. You can buy it if you want. It's called Rashi, the Saperstein edition. It's Rashi, specifically the Torah with Rashi's commentary translated, annotated, and elucidated. This is not your blue stone edition Art Scroll Humash. It is not. The stone edition Art Scroll Humash is quoting the Orach Chaim commentary on the commentaries in English. This one is Rashi. Rashi is explained by the Sifsei Chachamim. So the guys that wrote this in Lakewood are referring to the explanation of the Sifsei Chachamim type 1 Jacques. The Sifsei Chachamim asks on Rashi, why did Rashi, who typically copies and pastes, because that's what rabbis do. When Rabbi David Katz teaches, unless he says his opinion, he copies and pastes from the Torah. Why does Rabbi Katz teach Ger? Because the Torah said Ger, and Rabbi Katz doesn't write anything for himself. He copies and pastes like rabbis, type 1. That's what a rabbi does. So Rashi copies and pastes from the Sifri, Midrash Gadol, and generally the Talmud Bavli. If it's not there, then you need to be a rabbi and go look it up and research and find out where Rashi got it from. Sometimes Rashi writes corrections, so, like here. He says, and if. The Sifsei Chachamim says, don't read and if. It means ke'ilu, as if. Jacques will tell you that the Orach Chaim said as if also. But Jacques will also tell you that's according to a different commentary in a strange coincidence that the Orach Chaim and Rashi both added as if, but in two different connotations. Eric, if I told you, Eric, tell me something. Tell me something. as if you're responding to my statement. Correct, Eric? Eric, tell me something else. As if. Okay, did you hear me say the word as if 2 different ways? Therefore, we find when the Sifsei Chachamim and the Or HaChaim said as if, it had 2 totally different meanings. So now that we know that, our scroll is going to translate as if, or the ve'im, and if, and they ignored the Sifsei Chachamim ki'ilu, meaning they're using ki'ilu to describe ve'im, as if or and if, and they translate it literally and if. Jacques, are you with me? Jacques, type 1 if you're telling the truth. I need to know that you're with me. All right. Where are you? All right, what's the problem? Okay. So now when we go in the footnote, because in the translation it looks okay. It looks okay. Even though they translated it and if. Actually, this is actually more knowledgeable than we had during the week, because during the week, Eric, we should have said, when they said and if, we should have said they're wrong. It's as if. That's the correct. That's why I was missing Jock in class. Eric, do you see the problem? I actually missed the art scroll when they translated it as and if. I didn't take the Sifsei Chachamim far enough. I gave them credit, saying they translated it straight, right? They actually did a good service by translating it straight. So then in the footnote, they should have said the Sifsei Chachamim said don't say and if, but as if. Jacques, type 1. So now let's read the comment, shall we? Taken literally, the verse says, and her father spat in her face. Jacques, is that true? Did Art Scroll type a true statement? The answer is yes. There's nothing wrong with what they said. Not yet. But Miriam's father did not spit in her face. Jacques, is that true? Thus the verse means. Jacques, are we about to get a definitive definition of what the verse means? He said, thus the verse means. Are we about to get a definitive meaning of the verse? 1 or 2? Let's go. 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. Hello, hello, hello. Jacques? Pay attention, geezer. He says, thus the verse means. And then he's going to say the following words. By the construct, he's about to tell us what the verse means. Is that correct? And if her father were to spit in her face. They italicized the word if and were, or were to. And if her father were to spit in her face. So the art scroll made the pshat by using Rashi's and if, and they explained it in a contrived way, and if her father were to spit in her face, but they just got done telling us that her father did not spit in her face. And we know that the punishment had nothing to do with God being angry or her father spitting. The punishment was 7 for a different reason completely. And the reason why they used the imagery was to show the emphasis or whatever Kabbalistic reason you want to say. Whatever it was, no one ever suggested, and if her father were to spit in her face. Therefore, they ignored Rashi's meaning 100% when it says and if, and translating it as if. They kept it as and if and explained it as and if and never explained it as if. If you explain it as if, you miss the Rashi 100%. If you explain it as if, you get the Rashi 100%. Eric, ask me how I'm doing, please. Eric, please ask me how I'm doing. Eric said, how are you doing? Hey, Eric, I'm God. How many of you guys have ever made that mistake? The classic typo on Facebook, when you forget the O, because you're typing fast, and instead of saying I'm good, it comes out as I'm God. Right? One little thing can make the entire thing go foul. So how about this? Is there a difference between Gary Tzedek and Gary Hot Tzedek, Eric? Jacques? And we see this in Torah every single time. Hey, James, is there a difference between Akum and Ben Noach in the Rambam? Assuming James can type or not type, there you go. The answer is yes. My friends, the Torah is very subtle. How many of you guys have ever had a communication with another person? Anybody? Anybody ever have a communication with anybody else? No one? Hello? Okay. How many of you that have ever had a conversation with someone, how many of you have ever misunderstood somebody? Aren't you surprised how easy it is to misunderstand somebody? Aren't you amazed how easy it is to misunderstand someone? And isn't it always amazing how they misunderstood you? Can a non-Jew keep a non-Jewish Shabbat? How many of you heard me say, can a non-Jew keep Shabbat? How many of you have heard Mike Matledge say a non-Jew cannot keep Shabbat because they're going to give it back to the Jews? That was in the video that he made. The newest video. You see what I'm saying? You can take a word 1,000 ways. People speak creatively. And it's not your job to tell them how to speak. So when it says, and if, and it's an oral Torah, and the Sifsei Chachamim says it means as if, and you keep translating it and if, because you're a prescriptivist or a descriptivist approach, and you're going to miss the entire pshat. So I will promise you, you show this Rashi to 100 out of 100 people that learn it strictly through Rashi, they will, every single one of them will get it wrong. Unless they just go from wisdom, like a ger, and answer from logic from their own mind. But then you would say that's not what it says in the text. That means they kishuved you the right way, which is not so bad. But when the text is correct in the original Rashi, and they kishuv you in the original, then we have a problem. And that's what Art Scroll does in their Rashi thing. Rashi is not your enemy. I'm not even saying Art Scroll is your enemy. I'm saying Art Scroll needs cleaned. Right? It's an English commentary. It's not the Torah itself. So if we're going to make progression, as Rabbi Katz of Cleveland tells Green Road Kollel said in Cleveland, the best approach to getting ger today, his opinion, is getting Art Scroll to clean up their commentary. And I think that's a very fair expectation. I'm not going to call them out they're wrong and evil, but it is their duty to stay fresh. There's no such thing as I've learned it all and I never need to learn again. It's like saying Windows figured it out at 3.1. There's no reason to upgrade computers. We have Windows 3.1. Although XP is good enough, they did not have to do away with XP. That's my opinion. With that said, good Shabbos, everybody. It was a very good week. I think we had a very good class tonight. Yesher koyach. I hope this answered a lot of things. Nani, was this good for you? I hope we answered everybody. And Laila Tov, Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.